let's not create an impression that African Union has failed, or if there is anything, I mean, in the latest move that I've seen, I think the only effective thing that can happen is through African Union. We have troops, MONUC troops in the Congo. There are, I think, 17,000, but they have not done anything. Why? Because it's a question of mandate. In other words, we are just giving the right mandate to solve a different problem. We identify a problem that is A, and we give a mandate to solve a problem B. That's where the problem is. And therefore, you never solve it. So African Union, I think, is the right thing to do to work. But it's true, they don't have Humvees, they don't have so many things. I mean, it's a fact. But they are people who understand the regional dynamics, and they can do it. And what is lacking is what B.S. Smith is saying. There is no united front on this issue. And that's why you come in. You elicit the possibility that there can be unanimity in the international system machinery to focus on the problem. And to me, the urgent thing is to protect civilians. And the next thing, to do that, the correct mandate. Well, you are saying what is obvious. Some countries have different views about this. But I think if everybody is unanimous about creating a mandate to stop the massacres of civilians, then other things can come secondary. We can go for negotiations, we can go for, but I think this is very important. But I think African Union is the right thing in this equation. Give it the mandate, and the mandate is not, you don't get it on a silver platter, you know. This is the international system, but you have to work for it, and you are one of the things you can do. But African Union is good, I have confidence. Our troops are in Darfur, and where they are, we don't attack those villages. And they don't have the mandate, but they're saying, approach us, we are not going to sit us. So, assuming there are so many things. So it's not a question of thousands and thousands of troops, it's a question of the right mandate and confidence.
Very briefly, where is the Christian right on this issue? It seems to me that part of the issue is trying to get the Bush administration mobilized. This would be a unique constituency to help, this project, particularly since they've been so involved in Sudan, at least in the North-South war. And just a second quick question: why is the UN so uninvolved? I mean, I've read some things about this, but I'd be interested to get your feedback.
And I'm sure others have comments on this. One of the things I find the most intriguing about this whole mess is that you would think that from a political point of view, it would be win-win for the Bush administration to play hardball on Sudan, to increase the resources, be out there calling for a robust mandate, strengthening the unilateral sanctions we have in place, making sure that Condi Rice in her hearings mentioned it, that George Bush in his State of the Union mentioned it, and it's nowhere. And it's very, very difficult to figure out why that is. And I think there are a couple of reasons. I think one is one that has been very well explained by the professor, which is that I think they want to keep the really big question out of the equation, because you can't solve Darfur on the cheap. So to really do it, you've got to contemplate resources, commitments, and risks that are larger than they want to talk about. I think that the second is probably possible on the terrorism side. The administration claims that Khartoum is being much more cooperative on counterterrorism. I certainly didn't see it when I was in government. I can only surmise that they are doing a calculation there, and that maybe Khartoum is smart enough, and actually I think they are, to sort of hold them hostage on that and say, well, we'll cooperate on the war on terrorism, but if you put too much pressure, we'll back off. And I think the third reason is distraction. They are, again, so preoccupied with other aspects of foreign policy. But I think you're absolutely right, because in the body of people who care and are concerned about Sudan is every age group, political persuasion, religious affiliation you can imagine in the United States. So it's a win for any politician. Your second question was?
It's about the UN, just why
the UN.
it's been so involved.
Well, I think on the one hand, the UN has been inactive. I think one of the things that's really important to remember, though, about the UN, there's the UN, and then there's the UN Security Council. And the UN machinery is run by Kofi Annan. Some pieces run well, some pieces run terribly. The Security Council, which is where the decisions are made, is run by its members. So I think we got to be a little bit careful about saying the UN has been inadequate about this. I think you used phrasing about the Security Council of some sort of pathetic paralysis that is absolutely on target. Because it's the Security Council. You know, they always use this phraseology. The Security Council chooses to be seized of the issue. And they've chosen not to be seized of the issue. And that is the 5 permanent representatives who have chosen not to be seized of the issue. So I think that's the big problem. I think the other issue for the UN is a huge, for the UN as opposed to the Security Council, is a huge crisis in peacekeeping. The ambassador mentioned, you know, you've got this force in the Congo which is totally inadequate and then gets blown up by a totally reprehensible sexual abuse scandal. You've got a repetition of missions deployed to Africa, which exactly as the ambassador said, are facing challenge A and given mandate B. That's why Somalia failed, that's why MONUC failed, that's why early missions in West Africa, Liberia, and Sierra Leone failed until the British intervened. So unfortunately, I think there's a paralysis born of the crisis in the UN and the political debate around it. The one road I see for all of us on the advocacy front is this debate that will be had on reform of the Security Council and the responsibility to protect, and Mr. Bolton's hearing.